All right, welcome back into another episode of Jake's Takes. This is episode 30, and I am super excited for this one. We got some NBA draft talk to get into, and I'm excited to be joined by my brothers, AJ and Anthony Massucci. I had to get Anthony on. We're ready to go, and guys, how you doing today? We good?
I'm all good, man. I'm excited. I'm excited to do this. Definitely going to be, wrong on some picks, but hopefully more right than wrong.
Yeah, we did 2020 and 2021, and we were just looking at those. Had some good ones, like Josh Primo being out of the league. I had that one, but then there were some real bad ones, like Anthony Edwards all being threes on him.
Yeah,
but we'll get into what that means and all these upcoming prospects and some things to look for this upcoming year.
Yeah, no, one of the reasons like why I started doing the podcast and stuff is because of like things like this, like these are super fun evaluating prospects, and like we have this ranking system that we'll get into in a second for it, but like these are just fun things to kind of put together, and it's a fun way to bring sports into the action, and I think this is super fun. I mean, I'm really excited to like bring this to the podcast. This is going to be a lot of fun. All right, so let's get into it. AJ, why don't you talk to me a little bit about the rules and like how we were doing it?
So we came up with this a couple years ago, basically because we would all watch the draft. We would all know kind of an idea of who everybody is. And then like 5 years would go by and I would say like, oh, I was super high on, for example, Luka Doncic, but we had no evidence of this actually being true. I could have just made that up.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we decided in 2020, it was COVID year, and we were super bored just sitting around, and we were like, we have to kind of come up with a way to rank these players so that we could go back in 5, 10, 15 years and claim victory on your takes or defeat in most cases.
Yeah.
But so we came up with this system to do it. It's a very basic scale of 1 to 5. So 5 is probably a top 10 player in the league. Best player on a championship contender. So you think like Joel Embiid is a 5. Like that level of career would be a 5. Jason Tatum would be a 5. Any level of those players, Devin Booker would be another one. Just to name a few examples. Then a 4 would be like a top 30 player. So it's second best player on a championship team. So like a Jaylen Brown type player, Jaren Jackson type player. Like those type of players would be like a 4 career. And then 3 would be like a good role player. So you're thinking like, and role player meaning you could be a high level starter or just like a high level contributor off the bench. So like a PJ Tucker would be a 3, a Dorian Finney-Smith would be a 3, a Brook Lopez would be a 3. So they're really good players that impact winning in a big way in the regular season and the playoffs. But they're not quite like going to get all-star recognition for their type of production in their career. A 2 would be just like a Grayson Allen type player who's like, they're playable in the playoffs, but like if they're your starter, you're going to have like 4 really good starters around them to be a successful team. Or what's another good example? Like or just a contributor off the bench. So like a Seth Curry,
George Niang.
George Niang we talked about earlier. A Max Strus would be a good type of example. And that was 2, right?
Yep,
so that was 2. And then 1 would just be like you kind of bounce around from team to team, never really find a home. Maybe 1 year you crack a rotation on a playoff level team, but you're really just considered a bust. Like Stanley Johnson,
Marvin Bagley,
big good goal.
James Wiseman.
As of now,
those type of players, those would be considered ones.
Yeah. I mean, this is like so much fun to do, and I'm really excited for this. Like bringing those like into numbers, I think is kind of cool because like you kind of laid it out for everybody. Like it really like gives you a good example of like where they're at, and those players are good examples. Like Marvin Bagley's really good for a 1 there because as Pistons fans know, we should not be paying him that much money. But let's just get into this year's draft. We got to start with the top. We got to start with Victor Wembanyama. So Anthony, talk to me a little bit about Victor Wembanyama. Where do you have him? He's one of the greatest prospects in history. Talk to me about him.
Yeah, I went on a limb and I put him at a 5. So just like everyone else, I think he's a generational player. I just put, just kind of what everyone put, but then I just said only question is how long his prime is going to be, just because I don't know, he's 7'5". We've never seen anything like it before, and when you don't know, you can always assume injuries play a factor somehow. So he's obviously a 5, but I guess we'll just see how long his prime is.
Yeah. AJ, what do you got?
I mean, I had him at a 5. He's a generational type prospect. Probably closer to 5.5. I don't know if that's even allowed, but he's the best prospect I've ever seen. He's 7'5". He's going to walk into the NBA and be a top 10 defender, in my opinion. I don't know how good his offense is going to be, but the fact that he's already shooting and making plays off the dribble, and he even has good passing vision for a front court player, that alone being what I think is going to be the best defensive player in the league, like a Rudy Gobert plus defender on defense, and then not to mention the spacing he's going to provide on offense and the potential to create off the dribble. We'll see how good his offensive game actually becomes. It has a chance to be top 5 in the league. That would just like break the league, it feels like. But I think even if he doesn't maximize his full potential on offense, just his impact on defense alone will put him as a top 10 type player in the league. So I put him at a 5, probably closer to 5.5 than 5.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree with a 5 ranking because he is one of the best prospects we've ever seen. And I think you hit the point home, both of you, saying like his defense coming in is just going to be like ridiculous. You know, he's so switchable. He's such a good rim protector. I always think back to his game against Chet Holmgren when in the U18 where I think it was 18 or 17. I think Wemby was 17, but Wemby just destroyed him. He had 9 blocks, 12 points, 12 rebounds, was unbelievable. France lost by 2 points because Jaden Ivey had an unbelievable game. But I just think back to that performance and seeing him doing that at, I think it was 17 years old, and he was just flat out unbelievable already at that age. And it's like, I just think he's going to come in and be a really top tier defender, and really like his offense, like you said, we'll see. But the way he can space the floor, the way he can dribble, I mean, it's just flat out incredible. But, you know, we'll see. I mean, I don't know.
And the thing with him, too, is he's so long that he could be like at the free throw line and still like block a shot at the 3-point line. Like he totally changes the geometry of the court with the way that he uses his length, because a lot of tall guys can't use his length the way they do or move the way he does, but he can switch. He's not like going to be able to keep up with anybody, but he'll be able to contest shots from behind, the side, doesn't matter because his arms are so long. He's going to be fun to watch this year and for years to come, hopefully.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so let's get to the number 2 pick, which this was the Charlotte Hornets, and they selected Brandon Miller. So Anthony, talk to me a little bit about it. Brandon Miller at 2 over Scoot, who we'll get to, but talk to me about Brandon Miller.
Yeah, so I mean, just in general, I kind of took a different approach in how I was going to evaluate players this year, because I also kind of took the picks into it too, just because if you look at past history, like out of the top 3 picks usually in a draft, usually, you know, one is not to the level of the others, and I kind of took that into equation. And I think I love Brandon Miller personally, but I just don't get how you take Scoot. And I think everyone's going to be laughing at Charlotte in 5 years for this pick. But I still think he's a really solid player. I thought he was a stud at Alabama. I mean, he just had some games where you were just, I mean, not NCAA tournament games, but the regular season was unbelievable. I remember one game he just went out for 40. He's a ridiculous, fun player, but I think in the league, I don't think he can get to that same level. I have him as a 3 because I think he does everything well. I just don't think he does really one thing at an elite level. So I think he's a 3. I think he bounces around and like provides valuable minutes to some. But so I put solid player, but he's not Scoot Henderson. So that's kind of what I put.
Fair enough. AJ, what do you got?
I like Brandon Miller. I just, again, kind of like Anthony was touching on, he doesn't do anything elite, but he is 6'9", and he can shoot the ball. And if you're 6'9", can shoot the ball and can defend your position, which I think he can do, you're like going to be a passable player in pretty much any rotation. I mean, just look at the Indiana Pacers this year. They did not have a single player that could shoot on the wing. Like they were just like begging. It's like there's a shortage of that in the league. So I think he'll be able to stick around. I would go 2.5, 3. I'm leaning more 3 because shooting's so valuable in today's NBA. I don't understand how you can pick him at 2, but that's a whole different discussion. I think his lack of athleticism, if he just was a little bit more twitchy as an athlete and he would be able to guard his position and slide up to maybe guard some fours or move down to guard some twos. I just don't think he's that level of defender. And he doesn't do a great job of creating separation and using the mid range really, in my opinion. So I just don't think he's got like that superstar upside. Now, I've said that before about players, and I've been totally off, but I just don't really see it with him, especially with the other guys on the board. I'm going to land at a 3, but I'd be closer to 2.5 than 3.5.
That's fair. That's fair 100%. And originally when I evaluated Brandon Miller, I was at like a 3 or a 2.5, like similar to you. But I've been watching him more and more, and I'm starting to like his game a lot more. Like the shooting aspect, I like do believe that he can become that elite shooter, where that's like the part of his game where you have to stop and then he can get to other places. He shot the ball really well at Alabama, and before that in high school, he was actually known as a mid-range player. Like that was his game. He would get to the mid-range, all of that. But Alabama runs this weird, well, not really weird system, but they run a system where there's no mid-range. You can't shoot mid-range. Like they have a 4-point line in their practice gym, and they shoot from the 4-point line. Like that's how they roll, because they want that spacing, so it would be behind the 4-point line. And like if you're coming from a place like that and there's no mid-range, it's hard to evaluate that as an NBA scout. But I think he's going to be able to be fine from the mid-range and develop like some of those moves, because now it's okay for him to do that. And I also think it'll really help him to play off of a guy like LaMelo Ball, really be able to move off the ball and create for himself, like off the ball, and then create through the mid-range. Defensively, I'm a little nervous on that end. I don't think he's going to be like a Paul George defender or anything crazy like that. I do think he's going to be switchable, and I do think he's just going to be that solid defender that can help them. But I'm a little bit higher on his offensive game, and that's why I'm kind of going for the 3.5. Not really like top 30 level, but I could see him being like one of those guys where it's like he could be a third best player on a championship team, you know?
Yeah, I do like his situation. I think he does have, the right kind of team for him, like especially as like the number 2 pick to kind of go in there and thrive. So if he can prove right away he's that guy, I think he's got the right situation to do it. So he's got all the opportunity in front of him. But
I just don't, regarding the mid-range, I don't think he can create enough separation. Now, unless he becomes like a 45% three-point shooter where you have to chase him off the line, and they're asking him to take mid-ranges, like he'll be able to hit the open one. I just don't think in isolation he's going to be able to create mid-range jumpers at the level that you need to hit them to be efficient in the NBA. I mean, look at how good of a shooter Brandon Ingram is. Like that's the level that he's going to need to get to. And Brandon Ingram was also a lot longer, with a lot longer arms and a better athlete. So I just think he'll have a hard time creating his own mid-range looks, and that's what I think really keeps him down to being a 2.5 to 3 to me.
Yeah, I mean that's fair 100%. And like if you look at a guy like Brandon Ingram coming out, like we weren't sure if his shot would translate either, and he was actually a good shooter in college also, and people had questions about that. So I think Brandon Ingram's like almost a perfect example of like the height he could get to, like the best he could possibly be. But I really like the system, and I really like how he can play with LaMelo, and hopefully if LaMelo like develops a little bit on defense, like that team could win some games, But we'll
I'm not
see,
so sure about that.
Yeah, I know.
I'm very low on the Hornets, but that's just me.
All right, well, that can move us on to Scoot Henderson. So we got to talk about him. I mean, shocking move to take Miller over Scoot, like you were talking about, Anthony. But talk to me about Scoot Henderson. Where do you have him ranked?
So I have him at a 4.5, and okay. I love this kid. I think he's going to take the league by storm. When he comes in. I just kind of said he reminds me of John Wall, just kind of like the athleticism and everything coming in. I think that's going to wow some people right away. And I also just mentioned I think he has. I think he'll be an all-time point guard, but the reason I put him at 4.5 is there's only been 3 point guards ever who have been the best player in a championship team since like 1980, and I just don't think I'm just not comfortable putting him at that level, and who knows, he might get there, but I think he's got everything. Obviously, I believe his shot's going to come along as he hits his prime, and so just perfect for him, but I think it's an exciting time to be a Portland fan, so I got a 4.5.
Yeah, I love Scoot Henderson. I absolutely adore Scoot Henderson. I think him and Shaedon Sharpe might be the most fun backcourt to watch in the NBA. I think he shoots it better than people say he does. He shot 34% this year. Everybody kept saying the 29% number, but that doesn't include all the games that he played this year. So, but whatever. I think he creates space and he attacks the rim at such a high level that I think he's gonna. I just think he's gonna be an NBA superstar. You surround him with some shooting, you put some athletes around him and watch him work in transition. He's going to make everybody around him better, just like a point guard should do. And I'm very, very high on Portland Trailblazers, where they're going. I love Shaedon Sharpe. I love him. I'm very, very excited to watch Portland Trailblazers this year.
Did you have a 5?
Yes.
Okay.
I have a 5 on him.
All right. Just making sure. I have a 5 also. I love him.
Yeah, we've been
so
very
much.
similar, these top 3 picks.
Yes, we've been very similar. Like, Scoot, I mean, when you just hear about Scoot, you hear about his work ethic and how hard he works at everything. So it's like, maybe there's questions about his jump shot right now. I don't think there should be, like you were saying, like 34%, and you're playing from the 3-point line. He was playing in the G League, so like he's developed in that aspect. So it's like, you know, I'm not worried about it. He's going to be working on it. His jumper's only going to get better, and he's so athletic. And this guy is like great defender, and the speed is just unbelievable. Him and Sharpe, goodness gracious, like that's going to be unbelievable. So I'm super excited to watch him play. I think his passing is going to be fun to watch also. So I'm excited. The one summer league game we got to see him, like he was flat out sensational the whole time. So we'll see. I'm super excited for him, but yeah. We good?
Yeah.
We can move on? Okay.
let's do
All
it.
right. Let's go to Ausar Thompson then. So the Rockets picked him at 4. So Anthony, talk to me a little bit about him.
Yeah, I mean, you know, just going in, I wasn't really sure about the Thompson twins, just all in general. You know, just because, you know, it's the first time we've seen Overtime Elite. Just wasn't really sure about the competition. For talking about Amon specifically, I do think he is better than his brother Ausar, and I think he'll have a better career. I put him at a 3.5, and a lot of it just has to do with kind of like his vision passing and just athleticism. Like, I think could be like a top 5 athlete like in the NBA, and I just think that's going to keep him around and obviously going to be very valuable to a lot of teams. And you know, I'm not sure about how his shot will come along at any time, but if you're a top 10 athlete, I think you'll be just fine. So that's kind of where I have him.
Yeah, with Amen, and a lot of these things carry over to Ausar as well, but Amen specifically, I just personally, I'm a little bit lower on him than the average. Now, I still had him number 3 on my board because I think that he has the highest potential to get to be a superstar outside of Scoot and Wemby, so I'm going to land at a 3.5 as well. But I think his bust rate is pretty high. Anybody that can't shoot, in my opinion, it's hard to play guys that can't shoot in today's NBA because people just don't guard him. Now, he's a good enough passer, and he's such a good athlete, as Anthony was saying, that you almost have to guard him, kind of like you can't just help off of Zion Williamson because he's so quick and so explosive that he'll just, like, if you give him any space, he'll just be able to, like, beat you to that spot and then go up and finish. Now, he absolutely has the potential to do that because I do not believe in his jump shot at all, but he's going to be a freak defender. He's going to push the pace. They're going to play fast. He's a very good passer, and if he gets even just some remnants of a mid-range game, I think he's going to be a top player in the NBA. So I'm going to land at a 3.5 on him.
Yeah. See, I'm very low on him. I really am. I just don't like the fact that he can't shoot. And the athleticism, that's all I hear about, like just how athletic he is. But the thing is, it's like, I just don't know, like, if you can't shoot in this league, like you were saying, it's just very difficult to become like one of those top tier players.
Well, Giannis can't shoot.
Giannis
He's really
can't
good.
shoot, but he has developed like kind of a mid-range game, and he's 6'11", and like is huge. And you also mentioned Zion. He's also 6'8", 250. You know, he's like a tank. You know, like he'll go right through you. With Amon, like it's just the athleticism, and he's a point guard body. So to me, I feel like it's difficult if he's not like a wow passer or anything like that, or like or you know, like even like that wow defender. Like it's going to be difficult for him to have success. So I actually have him really low. I have him as a 2. So I'm not high on him, and I just don't like the fit with the Rockets either. The Rockets have so many guards there, and I just don't really know where they're going. I think Ime is going to have a lot of work cut out for him. They just got Fred VanVleet in free agency. Like, I just don't really know where they're going, so I don't like the fit for him either. If he finds another spot, I think it would be great for him, but I don't like the fit, and I got him as a 2.
My counterpoint to that, so as I was saying, his bust rate is definitely high because he does have to walk a narrow path. But one thing with Amen and Ausar is a lot of people talk about athleticisms in a lot of different players. And a lot of players don't use their athleticism in the game. But I think these guys do. I think, like, you see them jump up 3 feet higher than everybody else to go get a rebound. You see them, like, and just to even tip it to a teammate, you see them jumping the passing lanes, getting steals, making life hard as a help defender, as an on-ball defender. He's also 6'7", so I think with the Rockets this year, I think their best lineup is going to be him at the 3, but playing point guard on offense, and then just the 3 on defense. And I think he will be able to cause havoc on defense as a help defender and an on-ball defender. And then, I mean, I really like the look with him at the 3 on defense and the point guard on offense, because you just put him in a pick and roll with Sengun, or even like a Jalen Green as a pick and pop, or even him as a screener on offense with Fred VanVleet or Jalen Green. I mean, those are going to be tough to guard because you got shooting with Jabari Smith in the corner, Jalen Green, Fred VanVleet, and then Sengun making plays for other people. I think I actually do like the fit in Houston, I think, a lot more than you do. But I'm excited to watch him play and see how he translates to the NBA.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just kind of go right into Ausar's pick too. Obviously, is the next one, but with both of them, I think their bust rate is high, just because we're not sure about just the OTE league in general, and also just the competition they've played, and just shooting. This league thrives on shooting, and I think you can say with a lot of these guys, which makes this draft like really, really interesting, because I think a lot of them are super, everyone's saying, oh, they're a really good defender. Well, then let's see them go guard the best players in the world, see how good they are. But then also they're like, oh, his shooting will come along, but it's but no one's really an established shooter. I mean, we've already talked about Scoot. We all believe he'll get a shot there, and then just kind of go down the list where, as we'll talk about later. But then going into Ausar, if you asked me right after the pick, I would have probably said, as a Pistons fan, I probably would have said he was like a 2.5. And maybe that's just more, me not trusting the Pistons' development in any way, as I've watched my whole life. But I put him at a 3, a hopeful 3. I'll say that. I was impressed with some summer league games that he had, but I said he's overall solid. I just don't, I don't see any all-stars. I don't see anything that. I was upset with the pick. I'll put that out there. But I like the kid, and I also put at the end, please be wrong about this one, just as a fan, from a fan's perspective. But, I think he's got a high IQ, which will keep him, just valuable and everything like that. I just don't. I'm just not sure about the shooting. That's what scares me the most about Ausar especially, and I don't think he's the athlete to what his brother is. So I do think his bust potential is higher, and I think he is worse compared to his brother. But
yeah, I mean, going to the point on Amen Ausar, with Amen, I've been hearing always that he's the better athlete, which can help his case kind of. And I like what you were saying with the Rockets about some of the stuff you can do. I kind of didn't really think about they do have a lot now. It's a lot better team, and I mean they probably could be close to that play-in mix next year. But the West is kind of stacked, so we'll see, I guess. But looking at Ausar compared to Amen, I like Asar's jumper a lot more than Amen's. I think he has better mechanics. I think he can actually grow as a shooter compared to Amen. And that's more because Ausar shot better in the league. Ausar won MVP. And Ausar was really, I think, the better defender personally. And I also like the athleticism that he can bring. And he'll be more of that 3 kind of. So I think he'll have a way to kind of mesh in the league more than Amen, which is why I had him as a 3. And I don't love him. I don't think there's really any star potential in Ausar, but I do think he's going to be a solid player and will find his way.
I really like Ausar. I did not like him. I just didn't know what to think coming out of the league, but watching him in summer league, he's a lot of fun to watch. He's a really smart player. He gets other people involved. He's a really good passer. He makes really good passing reads. And again, the same thing with the men. He has applicable athleticism. Like he jumps super high. Now he just doesn't use that to dunk on people. He can do that too.
He had one cool dunk.
He's got a couple, but he also will go up and get rebounds. He'll get blocks. He'll contest shots. He's very active on defense. His motor is he plays so hard, and it's so much fun to watch somebody play so hard. The only problem is, like, will he get guarded in the playoffs if the Pistons ever make the playoffs?
Yeah.
So that's why I'm a little bit lower on the fit, especially with him and Jaden Ivey. But I actually kind of like him a little bit better than Jaden Ivey personally. But we'll see how that fit works out because we currently have 0 shooting on the team. But that's all right. We'll get there. And I just don't really see the shot coming along. I kind of think like Andre Iguodala type. That's the kind of player he is. Just like he kind of impacts a little bit of everything. But if he had the shot, man, he'd be awesome if he could shoot. And as you were saying, he's a better shooter than a men. He probably is. He is. The numbers say so. I don't think that's saying very much. He's still not a good shooter.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair.
I'm not sure I believe in the jump shot. If I believe in the jump shot, like, I think he's a top 20 player in the NBA, like 4. But I'm not a believer in the shot, so that's kind of keeping me as a 3.5 for him. And part of it is me talking myself into the Pistons pick. But
yeah, I'm really happy we didn't do it last year because I would have had Jaden Ivey super high. I love Jaden Ivey coming out.
It's been 1 year. You never know.
Exactly. You never know. All right, let's move on to number 6, which was Orlando. They selected Anthony Black. So let's talk about that a little bit. Anthony, what do you got for Anthony Black?
Yeah, not a fan. I'll just say that first. I mean, I just kind of look at the Magic draft, and I'm like, man, you guys had a pretty good opportunity, and I don't know what they see in these guys, but I put him at a 2.5. I mean, I probably would have had him higher, honestly, if he went to another situation, but now you got, like, Fultz in there, Suggs in there, and I'm, maybe it's because I was high on Suggs in the 2020 draft, as we were just looking over earlier. But I still think there's a case for Suggs to play in there. So I just don't think he went to kind of like a best-case scenario for him. I think he'll struggle to get minutes there. And then overall, he struggles with shooting, and I don't see it. I don't see it as a number 6 pick. I just didn't really have him that high. I was kind of surprised.
Fair enough. AJ, what do you got?
yeah, I'm also not a huge Anthony Black fan. I think he's fun to watch. He's kind of don't want to be rude, but he's like kind of the Walmart version of Ausar and Amen Thompson.
Yeah.
He can't really shoot, but he's a good point guard. Like, he's 6'6". He's an athlete. He's supposed to be able to guard. I don't understand it if you're Orlando. In my opinion, you should be trying to get guards that can shoot. Now, there aren't that many in the draft, but I would have almost gone Hendricks instead, because you kind of just want to surround Paolo and Franz and put the ball in their hands, because I think you got 2 all-stars on that team, 2 young all-stars with them. And now potentially you're adding a third, but there's just not going to be much space for Orlando to work, to let those guys work, I should say, especially when you're playing a non-shooting center with a bunch of non-shooting guards in the backcourt. I just don't know where that spacing really comes from. And I thought they had a chance to really make a leap with these 2 picks, and they weren't able to trade up. Like, none of the teams were really willing to trade down. But if I was an Orlando Magic fan, I'd be kind of bummed, because I thought, like, I still really like those 2 young players. I just don't know. It's going to be tough to maximize them when the space on the floor is so condensed, because teams don't really have to guard their shooters.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I had a 2 for Anthony Black. Like, I'm not very high. This really gives me Alfred Payton vibes. It really does. And I'm not just saying it because of the long hair. No, I'm not just saying it because of that. But, I mean, I really think there's similar players coming out. Like, Anthony Black, when I would watch Arkansas, I was like, he's the 3rd best player on this team. Ricky Council's way better. And Nick Smith I liked more even, too.
Yeah, I just don't think he'll get a lot of opportunity.
I mean, like, I just didn't really like the fit of Orlando, and people had Anthony Black high, and I kind of didn't really like him top 10. Like, I just wasn't that high.
I'm gonna say I forgot to say my rating. I'm gonna give him a 3.
Okay.
Now, but I don't think it's gonna be in Orlando, if that makes any sense. My feeling, I would lean closer to 2.5.
Yeah.
2.5, 3, somewhere in there. But I would think that, like, because I think in the right situation, like if he would have fallen to Utah, for example, I would have loved that. I would have loved that for him because he would have been able to be the point guard, make some mistakes. They don't really have too many people to clash with him, but I think his second team will be better than his first team, if that makes sense. He may be packaged in a bigger move for a guard or something like that, but I think he could be valuable on a different team. So I'm going to say 3.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. Let's move on to I don't know if I'm going to say his
Bilal
name
Coullibaly.
right. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Bilal Coullibaly. Did I say it right?
Yeah, I think I'm saying it right.
Okay.
So it's just a guess.
Let's hope we're saying it right. But Anthony, why don't you start with him? Talk to me about your rating.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, and I'll just put it out there. I don't know if I watched a ton of Bilal Coullibaly film myself. Kind of an unknown, and he was Victor's teammate, right? And incredibly long wingspan, and just everyone's kind of on the potential. Isn't he still like 17? He might be 18.
He's 18.
But
yeah,
18, I mean, but if you go to the Wizards, I wish him the best of luck. Just because you haven't really seen them really, develop some players. I kind of really didn't know where to go with this one, just because I don't know how well he shoots it. I know he's got a long wingspan, but I'm not really high on it per se. I was kind of surprised that they went this route. So I'm low. I'm probably lower than most people. I put him at like a 2, but I really don't know. I'll put it. I don't know. I think it'll take him a while to actually develop until we actually see. I think it's going to be a while until he can prove if he is a good player or not. And usually, that's not a great thing to have. So I put him low. I put him at a 2.
Yeah, so a little bit about Bilal Coullibaly. He was on Mets 92, which was Victor Wembanyama's team this past year, but he was on the G League version of their team, their second division team. And
Interesting.
He was averaging 20 points a game, so they called him up. And then he had a big end of the season run where he was probably their third best player on the team. And he kind of blew up. He was a late riser for sure. But that's just, he's like a 6'6", 6'7" wing, long arms. His ideal type would be a point of attack defender, and then he's supposed to be able to shoot it at some point. He only took 1 a game though, so it's hard to really get a sample on him. So that's just a little about him in case the listeners are not familiar, which I cannot blame them for not being familiar. But I don't see him being impactful in his first 3 years. Now, I see the vision of him down the line where you're all right, he can shoot it. If the shot comes along, because it looks good, but it doesn't really go in quite enough, and he doesn't have the volume there. He's still kind of learning how to play the game. He's long enough and athletic enough to be a good defender, but can he actually apply that to the game? There's just a lot of questions, and I'm genuinely anti-question. His kind of what I've heard people that are higher on him say is he could be a Mikal Bridges type player where he's a good point of attack defender. He can guard 1 through 3, 1 through 4 if it's a later 4. And I just that it's a really long road to get there and to be an applicable player. I'm gonna go with a 2, 2.5. Probably I'll settle at 2.5, but I just think when you're 2 years from being 2 years away, that's just a little too far away for me personally to take you, especially in the top 10, and live up to your number 7 overall draft spot.
Yeah. I kind of agree with Anthony. I really didn't know that much about him coming in. And learning the fact that he was a late riser, and I actually didn't know that he was on the lower team to start and then moved up. But that is interesting, and there's a lot of guys like that. Mikal Bridges was kind of similar to that, where he rose late, and those wings will kind of rise late in the draft if they're really showing up in those draft workouts and stuff like that. But looking at him, I don't really know too much about him. I think he's going to be an impactful defender. I do think that. So I actually had him at a 2.5, but especially with the Wizards, you just don't really know. I don't really know what their direction is going to be. They traded a lot, so they're definitely going to be in a rebuild. He'll definitely get some chances. So this is a more we'll see kind of pick in my opinion. But I don't know too much about him, and I'm just going to put him at a 2.5.
Fair enough.
Okay, we are actually going to conclude this part. I'm going to make this a 2-part podcast. So this is going to be part 1, where we just went through the top 7. And then part 2, we're going to finish out the lottery. And then we'll give you our sleepers and pretty much who we think the best player in the draft will be. So that's going to conclude this part of the podcast. And we'll see you on the next part. Peace.